Welcome to TFN Financial News Stock Breakthroughs. I'm Erin Beal. Anyone who's ever had a prescription filled knows firsthand that drugs are expensive. But now a congressional movement spearheaded by Senators Hillary Clinton and Orrin Hatch are seeking to slash these prescription medication costs. Joining me now is Andrew Snyder, editor of Volume Spike Alert. Andy has been following this biotech generic drug movement for several months, and he's here to weigh in on the debate. Andy, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me, Erin.
Let's start by briefly discussing the background behind this drug debate. Can you tell us a little bit about this so-called Biogenerics bill?
Sure, it's a pretty simple bill, really. They're just trying to get the biogenerics or biotechnology industry the same as the big pharmaceutical industry, where you can have a company develop a drug, have patent protection for 5, 6, 7, 10 years, and then have the generic industry move in on it and keep prices low. In the biotech industry, that's not happening right now, and there's a lot of movement in Congress to get that done so we can have some cheaper biotechnology drugs on the market.
Right, because currently it's illegal for Americans to travel to Canada to buy cheaper drugs. So would this biogeneric bill allow us to import pharmaceuticals from other countries, or would it just eliminate the need since domestic prices would be so competitive?
Well, the original biogenerics bill as it was written would not allow Americans to go to Canada for their drugs. But last week they paper-clipped on some amendments to the bill that would allow people to start going to Canada. It's not likely that it's going to go through. Bush is already threatening to veto it, but it's going to be the piece of legislation that kind of throws a curveball into this biogenerics bill.
Well, so basically, if I'm understanding you correctly, this biogeneric legislation would create a legal way to distribute generic versions of biotech drugs. So the generic versions would slash healthcare costs for Americans. So I'm wondering why the opposition in the House?
Well, a lot of the opposition is coming from not the House itself, but the lobbying effort that kind of makes sure things happen the way they want it in the House. The big biotechnology companies don't want the generic competition because they're the ones that have to pay for all this research, and they want to capitalize on the expensive drugs. They want to be able to push the expensive drugs as long as they can. If generics come in with competition, it's really going to hurt their profits.
I see. So do you expect the bill to finally pass the House later this year? But even if it does, what are the chances that President Bush will veto the measure? You mentioned before that is a possibility.
Well, I think the biogenerics bill will pass. Right now it's stuffed on the back of an FDA funding bill, which is where this imported drug thing came in as well. But if we pull out the biogenerics bill, which I think will happen by this summer, it'll definitely pass, and President Bush definitely will not veto that bill. It'll happen.
So clearly this legislation would hit some of the big pharma companies pretty hard, like Amgen and Genentech. So how would you play this bill passing? Would you short the big guys, or would you play some little guys?
Well, first I'd certainly play the little guys. Companies like Titan Pharmaceutical, Poniard Pharmaceutical are really well set to take care of this biotechnology generics industry. Shorting the big guys, I wouldn't do that just yet. There's a lot of things that still have to work out. If you want to buy some long-term put options on them, it's not a bad idea, but it's certainly a speculative play that has a lot of risk involved. Right now, I'd go with the cheap stocks I just mentioned and play them long.
But besides the legislation news, are there any other signs that these little companies are poised to profit?
Of course, there's a lot of insider buying on Poniard and Titan Pharmaceutical. There's insiders have been buying like crazy, and Titan's like a $2.65 stock, so it's poised to do really, really well if this bill hits. Even if it's not, with that kind of insider buying, something good's going to happen.
Wow. So will your Volume Spike Alert readers be getting specific recommendations now, or will you be releasing those closer to when the legislation is debated on again, or what's your plan?
You can bet the Volume Spike Alert traders are going to be poised to take advantage of this. We already have some smaller biotech companies in there, and as time gets closer, we're certainly going to play the issue.
That sounds great. Thank you, Andy. As Andy mentioned, if you'd like to learn more about his trading service, Volume Spike Alert, you can visit www.volumespikealert.com. That's all for this edition of Stock Breakthroughs. I'm Erin Beal, and I'll see you again next week. Cheers!